On the evening of December 29th, 1980, three people, Betty Cash, Vicky Landrum, and Vicky's grandson Colby Landrum, witnessed a light in the sky on their way home from dinner. When the light landed, the two older women stepped out of their car to investigate the strange object. The object in question was a metal diamond with its sharp edges removed, and was said to be a similar size of a water tower. The sight was short-lived, but the aftermath left by its arrival proved almost deadly. Hey everyone, my name is Blast, and today we'll be discussing a bizarre UFO encounter known as the Cash-Landrum Incident. So let's begin with the incident report. Around 9 p.m., Betty, Vicky, and Colby were driving home to Dayton, Texas in Betty's Oldsmobile after dining out. While driving on an isolated two-lane road through the woods, they saw a light above the trees, and at first, they thought it was an airplane approaching Houston Intercontinental Airport and didn't think much of it. A few minutes later on the road, they saw what they believed to be the same light as before, but now much closer and brighter. They said that it came from a huge diamond-shaped object which hovered at a treetop level, and that its base was expelling flame and emitting significant heat. Vicky told Betty to stop the car, fearing that they would be burned if they had gotten any closer. As a born-again Christian, Vicky interpreted the object as a sign of the second coming of Jesus Christ, telling Colby that's Jesus and he will not hurt us. Betty said she was anxious and considered turning the car around, but abandoned this idea because the road was too narrow and she presumed the car would get stuck on the dirt's shoulders, which were soft from that evening's rainfall. Betty and Vicky said that they got out of their car to examine the object, but that Colby was terrified, and so Vicky said she quickly returned to the car to comfort him, while Betty remained outside, mesmerized by the bizarre sight, as Jerome Clark of the UFO Encyclopedia wrote. Clark goes on to write, "The object, intensely bright and a dull metallic silver, was shaped like a huge upright diamond, about the size of the Dayton water tower, with its top and bottom cut off so that they were flat rather than pointed. Small blue lights ringed the center, and periodically over the next few minutes flames shot out of the bottom, flaring outward to create the effect of a large cone. Every time the fire dissipated, the UFO floated a few feet downward toward the road, but when the flames blasted out again, the object rose about the same distance." They said that the heat was strong enough to make the car's metal painful to the touch. Betty said she had to use her coat to protect her hand from being burned by the door handle when she finally got back in the car. When she touched the dashboard, Vicky claimed that her hand pressed into the softened vinyl, leaving an imprint that was evident weeks later. They said that the object then ascended over the treetops and rose higher in the sky, and then a group of helicopters approached it, surrounding it in tight formation. Betty and Vicky counted 23 helicopters and later identified some of them as tandem-rotor Boeing CH-47 Chinooks used by military forces worldwide. More specifically, Betty claimed that they had United States Air Force markings. With the road now clear, Betty says she drove on, claiming to see glimpses of the object and the helicopters receding into the distance. After the 20-minute encounter, Betty took the Landrums home and relaxed for the evening. However, that would not be the end of their claims. All three witnesses experienced similar symptoms, though Betty Cash experienced the brunt of it. They claimed that they were suffering from nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, generalized weakness, a burning sensation in the eyes, and feeling as though they were suffering from sunburn. Over the next few days, Betty Cash said that her symptoms worsened and that she had many large, painful blisters forming on her skin. When taken to a hospital emergency room on January 3rd, 1981, Jerome Clark, again, wrote that Betty could not walk and had lost large patches of skin and clumps of hair. She was released after 12 days, though her condition was not much better, and she later returned to the hospital for another 15 days. In a 1985 HBO documentary, UFOs: What's Going On, Betty's hair loss was shown in pictures, and she claimed doctors switched from treating her for burns to treating her for radiation sickness after realizing that she had been exposed to radiation. Later, she was treated for cancer. The Landrum's health was somewhat better, though reportedly both suffered from lingering weakness, skin sores, and hair loss. In April 1981, Vicky was found to be developing a cataract in one eye, and Betty was first treated for breast cancer in 1983. Neither condition was known to have been present prior to the UFO encounter. A man named Brad Sparks contended their ideas of radiation by assuming if it were a large amount of radiation, they would have been dead after a few days. But since they're alive, their symptoms must have been caused by chemical contamination, which he presumes to be an aerosol. In the end, they tried taking it to court due to their injuries, but on August 21st, 1986, the case was dismissed and all three of the victims lived long, healthy lives. What are your thoughts about the Cash-Landrum Incident? Do you believe? Underwater monsters have always scared and fascinated me ever since I started watching Godzilla movies as a kid. I like to read discussions and watch YouTube videos about urban legends specifically being from the sea. By far, in my opinion, our ocean is 1,000 times scarier than anything in space. Well, maybe besides black holes, but that's an explanation for another time by somebody way smarter than me. Hello everybody, my name's Blast, and today I want to discuss a very creepy Japanese legend that has become one of my favorites to learn and talk about. We are talking about the urban legend known as the Ningen. Ningen actually translates to human or human being in English, which makes it a bit more creepy as it describes the creature's uncanny appearance. The Ningen is an aquatic humanoid whale-like creature that inhabits the freezing Arctic waters that was first mentioned in the mid-2000s by Japanese internet users. The Ningen has two main appearances. One describes it as a large aquatic whale-like creature that has anatomical similarities to humans, such as a distinct humanoid face, and in some stories it is said to have extremely large limbs and or arms and hands, about 20 to 30 meters, so in American speak, it's like 65 to 100 feet long. The second, less common description portrays it as a considerably smaller terrestrial organism, which consists of little more than a large head on humanoid legs, with which it wanders Antarctica. The creature's skin is said to be pale blue, and the creature supposedly has a large slit-like mouth and either small or large gaping eyes. Both descriptions I think are pretty cool, but let me know what your favorite version of the creature is down below in the comments. There's actually not a lot of sources for this creature since it is an urban legend, so take many things I'm going to say with a grain of salt. Of course, it's all up to you if you believe in monsters. I do, so I'll try to be respectful. Anyway, the legend surrounding the Ningen apparently began around 2007 on a forum post on the Japanese online forum website 2channel. It claimed that the members of a whale research ship witnessed the creature as it surfaced near their ship off the Antarctic coast. The crew, originally thinking it was a submarine, went to take a closer look and investigate, but the creature vanished into the water. According to Kale Novak, author of Supernatural, 300 Horror Stories, Mysteries, and Urban Legends, he writes that in 2005, Google Earth captured what many people believe to be a Ningen near the Southern Ocean. Many skeptics believe that the thing in the photo was an iceberg that people mistook for the creature. I couldn't find the picture without having to buy the book, but I found a photo from 2008 that looked like a similar dilemma to what people were talking about. In 2010, a Japanese chemical research company published a YouTube video showing the ocean life that they observed. Near the end of the video, a large creature with small eyes and a large, smiling, slit-like mouth can be spotted lying on the ocean floor. Though some people think that the infamous Ningen was spotted, let me just show you the video. I clipped it a little bit to get the Ningen part faster, so let me know what you think. Many people believe that the creature spotted in that video is most likely a snaggletooth snake eel, which I personally believe is plausible. Sometime around the 2010s, an unknown user posted underwater footage depicting a large humanoid sea creature, which many believed to be the Ningen. Unfortunately, the user is unknown, so I can't really track it down. Yeah. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. And I got one question for you. Do you believe? I would say, I mean, the ocean is like unexplainable, you know, there's a whole bunch of stuff that we don't even know. Hell, Cthulhu can be down there for all we know. But to say if I believe in the Ningen, I would say maybe, because it's the ocean we're talking about. It's not like on land with like Bigfoot or something. If Bigfoot was real, we would have found him by now, at least a dead body or something, unless they eat each other. But something in the ocean I think is way more plausible. So do I believe in the Ningen? My final answer is maybe. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. A teenage butcher who brutally murdered his girlfriend and a female schoolmate before taking his own life left a demonic charcoal sketch of a beheaded creature in his bedroom. Two girls, Aishanur and Iqbal, both age 19, were murdered by Semi Shelik, also age 19, within a half an hour of each other on October 4th, 2024 in Istanbul, Turkey. Semi Shelik, a 19-year-old who had worked as a butcher, had been treated in a mental hospital 5 times in 2024 due to psychiatric illnesses. He had been reported missing twice and had attempted suicide once. He had no prior criminal record. A detailed search of his home uncovered a sketch drawing resembling the dismembered body of Iqbal Uzner. According to a statement by his father, Adam Shelik, his son was Uzner's classmate and had been receiving treatment in a mental hospital due to his psychiatric problems. He had first discovered his son's disturbing drawings over a year ago, saying to reporters, "When I entered Semi's room, I saw the devil-like drawings he had drawn on the wall, which frightened the human mind." He continues to say, "When we asked Semi, 'What are these drawings?' he would explain it differently by saying, 'You wouldn't understand. Our mindset is different.'" Semi Shelik was alone at home, as his sister was out of town for a university. He first invited Aishanur, allegedly his girlfriend, to his house. There he killed her by cutting off her tongue and decapitating her. He then informed the police that a murder had occurred at his house and fled. Half an hour later, he met Iqbal in Fatih, took her to the walls of the Constantinople, and killed her there. He then dismembered her body, threw her head off the city walls, and left her torso and body on top of the walls. Afterwards, Shelik committed suicide by wrapping a rope around his neck and jumping from the walls. After the murder, an investigation was launched and statements were taken from the families of the 2 victims and the murderer. As the father already stated, Semi was already a troubled teen. He continued to add that his son's teacher called him during his high school years and told him that his son should stay away from a friend at school. He also added that Semi spent a lot of time on his computer he bought for his son, and that when his family entered his room, he would panic and quickly turn off the computer. It was said that Shelik asked his father questions about death at home, had imaginary delusions, and kept knives in his room. He added that he was religious before he was 16, and that he started to question it existentially with the COVID-19 pandemic. His guidance counselor told him that Semi had a talent for programming, so his father had bought him a computer. It was determined upon examination of Shelik's phone that he had contact with people who identified themselves as incels. Following the murder, provocative and supportive posts were made by incel groups. Upon this, the chief public prosecutor's offices took action and detained the suspects. On October 9th, 2024, access to Discord was blocked from Turkey. The killings stirred public outrage over violence against women and femicide in the country, with groups organizing protests calling for the reinstatement of the Istanbul Convention and the effective implementation of Law 6284, which is a law that protects families and prevents violence against women. Overall, this was just a messed up story that I wanted to share because of this disturbing drawing. I seen it once on an Instagram reel and I just couldn't get out of my head. So now that I've read and shared the story, hopefully I can forget about it. Moral of the story is to check on your kids, make sure they're doing alright, and if they're too far gone, take away Discord. A savage bipedal being with a human body and a wolf head. It stalks the swamps at night, searching for prey, thirsty for blood. The Rougarou, sometimes spelled Loup-Garou, is one of Louisiana's most enduring and mysterious urban legends. Rooted in French folklore but transformed by the cultural melting pot of the Louisiana bayous, the Rougarou is said to be a fearsome, wolf-like creature that stalks the swamps at night. Stories of the beast have been passed down for generations, weaving together elements of European superstition, Cajun Catholic tradition, and local storytelling flair. Hey everybody, I'm Blas, and I like to make videos about things that I like. Well, that sounds kind of stupid. I like to make videos talking about things that I like. I make video game reviews, paranormal / true crime videos, sometimes even though I'm not a big fan of true crime, it's sort of kind of maybe. And mostly videos pertaining to current video games that I'm playing, such as Dead by Daylight, Fortnite, and Marvel Rivals, even though I run out of things to talk about on that game, but whatever. So, I thank you for clicking on the video, and I hope you enjoy it. So, let's get back on topic. So, the name Rougarou comes from the French word Loup-Garou. Loup meaning wolf, and garou meaning werewolf, or man who transforms into a beast. French settlers brought the werewolf legend with them when they arrived in North America during the colonial period. Over time, these stories were adapted to the unique geography, wildlife, and cultural beliefs of Louisiana's Cajun communities. The swampy environment with its thick fog, eerie night sounds, and dangerous wildlife provided the perfect backdrop for a shape-shifting predator. The Rougarou is most often described as a creature with a human body and the head of a wolf or dog, standing taller than a man and possessing glowing red eyes. Some accounts say that transformation occurs through a curse, either placed by another person or brought on by breaking a sacred rule, such as neglecting to observe Lent. Others suggest that becoming a Rougarou is a punishment for wrongdoing, while in certain versions, the curse is passed down like a disease. If the Rougarou draws your blood, you too will become one. The creature is said to roam the swamps and the sugarcane fields around Acadiana and Greater New Orleans, preying on livestock or humans who stray too far from home after dark. The stories emphasize its supernatural cunning, claiming that it can disguise itself during the day and that it cannot be killed by ordinary weapons. Makes me think of a skinwalker, sort of. Beyond fear, the Rougarou legend has long been used as a cautionary tale. In Cajun Catholic tradition, parents sometimes warned children that the Rougarou would get them if they didn't behave or follow religious teachings, particularly the Lenten fast. Hunters and fishermen were also told to respect certain environmental boundaries, lest they attract the creature's wrath. This made the Rougarou both a moral enforcer and a guardian of the local customs. Today, the Rougarou is a fixture of Louisiana folklore festivals, Halloween attractions, and even local art. Communities such as Houma, I'm pretty sure it's pronounced, even hold a Rougarou Fest, celebrating the legend with costumes, parades, and storytelling, while most residents treat the Rougarou as a fun and spooky tradition. Some still claim sightings in the remote bayous, but you never know how true those are. Whether these encounters are the result of misidentified wildlife, or an overactive imagination, most likely, or something truly unexplained, remains part of the mystery. So, the Rougarou is more than just a werewolf story. It is a living piece of Louisiana's cultural heritage. Whether seen as a terrifying swamp predator or a playful festival mascot, the Rougarou continues to prowl both the waters of southern Louisiana and the imagination of those who hear its tale. Cryptids, mysterious creatures said to exist outside the boundaries of scientific knowledge. They've long fascinated people around the world, including myself. Well, many cryptids, such as Bigfoot or the Loch Ness Monster, have centuries-old roots in like folklore and stuff. Others have just emerged in recent decades. One of the most curious of these new, or modern, I guess would be the better word, legends is the Fresno Nightcrawler, a bizarre, seemingly otherworldly creature first recorded in California's Central Valley. Unlike traditional monsters that rely on ancient myths, the Nightcrawlers represent a new kind of urban legend, one born out of technology, surveillance, and viral media. Hey everyone, I'm Blas, and I like talking about stuff. This is my channel, and yeah, thank you for clicking on the video. And I'm actually really excited to be talking about this cryptid because the Fresno Nightcrawler is kind of important to me because, well, it's my I live in Fresno, so that's my cryptid. I think the Fresno Nightcrawlers are pretty cool. They look goofy, and in recent memory, they've kind of been ruined by Among Us. But besides that, I think they're still pretty cool cryptid, even though I don't personally. I don't know. I'm going off on a tangent. Let's get back on topic. The Fresno Nightcrawlers were first reported in the early 1990s, though they entered public consciousness in 2007 when a Fresno resident captured security footage of two strange figures walking across his lawn at night. The grainy video showed tall, thin, white, stick-like beings with disproportionately long legs and tiny upper bodies. They look like my principal from elementary school. Otherwise than that, they appeared to glide or walk awkwardly, almost like ghostly marionettes. The footage quickly spread online, fueling speculation about their origin. A second similar sighting occurred in 2011 near Yosemite National Park, where park surveillance cameras reportedly caught footage of two Nightcrawlers walking along a path. These separate recordings helped solidify the creature's place in cryptid lore, as both seem to depict beings with the same eerie design. The Fresno Nightcrawlers are typically described as between 3 and 4 feet tall, though some reports suggest smaller variations. Their most distinctive feature is their long, pale legs, which make up for nearly their entire bodies, with only a small head or torso perched at the top. They are usually said to be white or like a light gray, lacking facial features or arms. Their gait is unsettling, slow, deliberate, and oddly smooth, as though they are floating slightly above the ground, almost like jellyfish. Think of them like jellyfish. So, unlike other cryptids associated with violence or menace, the Nightcrawlers are not known for aggression. Instead, they are portrayed as elusive, almost fragile beings that appear briefly before vanishing back into the darkness. This strangeness adds to their allure. They do not fit neatly into familiar categories of monsters, ghosts, or aliens. Despite their recent emergence, some researchers have tried linking the Nightcrawlers to Native American legends. Certain tribes in the Fresno area reportedly speak of beings resembling thin, tall spirits connected to the natural world, though direct evidence is scarce. Others believe the Nightcrawlers could be extraterrestrials, which, I'd consider them extraterrestrials, citing their unusual anatomy and behavior as evidence as a non-human origin. Yeah, just look at them. I mean, it doesn't take a rocket scientist. So, skeptics, however, argue that the videos are likely hoaxes, costumes, puppets, or clever digital editing. The shaky quality of the footage makes it difficult to rule out human trickery, yet the creature's odd proportions and fluid movement leave the room for doubt, keeping the mystery alive. So, yeah. Comment down below if you believe them or not, which you probably don't. Most people don't. Moving on. Since their first appearance, the Fresno Nightcrawlers have become an internet phenomenon. They feature in documentaries, online forums, and paranormal investigations. They also have entered pop culture, appearing as plush toys, tattoos, and even cryptid trading cards. Their unusual design, equal parts creepy and endearing, and made them a fan favorite among cryptid enthusiasts, often compared to walking pants or alien stick figures. The Fresno Nightcrawlers embody the modern evolution of folklore. Unlike traditional legends passed down orally through generations, these beings emerge through video surveillance and viral sharing, showing how technology reshapes the way we create and spread myths. Whether real or fake or something in between, the Nightcrawlers continue to haunt the imaginations of those who see them, though remain one of the strangest examples of 21st century cryptids, silent figures gliding through the night, reminding us that the world still holds mysteries waiting to be explored. Too bad nowadays most of the mysteries are AI generated. Across Southeast Asia, folklore abounds with tales of spirits, demons, and supernatural beings that serve as cautionary stories or reflections of cultural beliefs. Among the most chilling is the legend of the Krasue, a ghostly figure of a woman whose disembodied head floats through the night with her internal organs dangling beneath her. The Krasue is feared across Thailand, Cambodia, Laos, and Malaysia, and her legend has endured for centuries, adapting with each retelling while retaining her horrifying core image. To many, the Krasue is not just a ghost story, it is a representation of societal fears, morality, and the supernatural forces believed to lurk beyond the human world. Hey guys, I'm Blas, and today we are going over an urban legend that just recently piqued my interest. So, Dead by Daylight, a game that this channel is known for and what I like to talk about, is introducing a new original killer that they've been teasing for a while, but we finally got a big teaser today as of September 2nd, and the PTB comes out tomorrow, September 3rd, which is hopefully when this video will be released, and I kind of want to get that window where I'm able to explain to people what the Krasue is and also lean into the Dead by Daylight, their new killer. And I'm just really excited to get into it. I'm excited to see what Dead by Daylight does with its power and how it's gonna look like. Well, we kind of already know how it looks, but you know, just to see it in game, especially the Mori. I always love the Moris. But anyway, to continue, my name is Blas. I do videos about supernatural stuff, Dead by Daylight, sometimes just basically creepy stuff I want to talk about, or just stuff I want to talk about in general. So, if you're going to subscribe, bear with me. So, anyway, without further ado, let's get back into learning about the Krasue. The Krasue's origins are difficult to pinpoint because the legend is so widespread across multiple cultures. In Thailand, she is most often called the Krasue, while in Cambodia, she's known as the Op, in Laos as Krasue, and in Malaysia as the Penanggalan. Scholars believe the figure may have originated in India before traveling through Buddhist and animist traditions across Southeast Asia. The name Krasue comes from the Thai word Ra Suia, meaning to float or to glide, which often describes her nightmarish way of drifting through the air. Oral tradition has kept the legend alive for centuries, evolving with each culture's own values and fears. The Krasue is most commonly described as the floating head of a woman, with her organs such as her heart, lungs, stomach, and intestines trailing beneath her neck. At night, she emerges from her human host's body, glowing faintly, and glides through the village in search of food. Her appetite is said to be insatiable and gruesome. She feeds on blood, flesh, and entrails, often preying on livestock like chickens or water buffalo. In some stories, she specifically hunts pregnant women and devours their unborn children, making her a terrifying figure associated with maternal vulnerability. She is also said to feast on filth and carrion, symbolizing her corruption and separation from normal society. By day, the Krasue disguises herself as an ordinary woman. Only at night does her monstrous nature reveal itself, forcing her to return before sunrise to reattach her head and organs to her hidden body. Different cultures explain the Krasue's existence in different ways, but most involve themes of punishment or karmic retribution. Number 1. Karmic punishment. In Thai Buddhist tradition, women who commit grave sins, such as adultery, cruelty, or abuse of spiritual power, may be cursed to become a Krasue after death. This connects the figure to Buddhist notions of karma and the idea that sins carry supernatural consequences. Number 2 is witchcraft gone wrong. In some versions, a woman practicing black magic performs a ritual that backfires, causing her head and organs to separate from her body each night. And number 3, it's an inherited curse. Others suggest that the Krasue curse is hereditary, passed down through generations of women. Those born into this fate cannot escape their destiny, reflecting cultural fears about family shame and inescapable sin. The Krasue is more than just a monster story. It reflects deeper societal anxieties and traditions. Female transgression. The Krasue is almost always female, and her monstrous form is often interpreted as a metaphor for women who defy traditional roles. Her grotesque appetite and predatory behavior represent a corruption of the nurturing feminine archetype. Pregnancy and childbirth. Because the Krasue is said to target pregnant women, her legend reinforces fears surrounding childbirth, which was historically dangerous and surrounded by taboos. Midwives and families often invoked rituals to ward off Krasue attacks. The outsider. The Krasue lives on the edge of society, feeding at night and hiding by day. She represents the danger of those who cannot or will not conform to communal norms. Villagers across Southeast Asia developed various methods to ward off or kill the Krasue. First, thorns and spiky plants. Placing thorny branches around doors or windows prevents the Krasue from entering homes, as her dangling organs can become entangled. Dogs. Krasue are said to fear barking dogs, which can expose them while they feed at night. Destroying the body. If someone discovers the Krasue's hidden body, burning or destroying it ensures that she cannot reattach before sunrise, leaving her to perish. These methods highlight the belief that the Krasue is both terrifying yet vulnerable, dangerous at night, but dependent on secrecy. Let's talk about the modern interpretations. Today, the Krasue continues to thrive as a cultural figure. In film, Thai and Cambodian horror films often portray her as a central villain, terrifying audiences with special effects that bring her gruesome form to life. In festivals, in some rural areas, villagers dress as the Krasue during festivals or ghost parades, transforming the once feared figure into a symbol of cultural identity. On the internet, with the rise of social media, images and memes of the Krasue circulate widely, turning her into both a source of humor and fear for younger generations. Interestingly, modern portrayals often blend horror with sympathy, depicting the Krasue not just as a predator, but as a tragic figure cursed against her will. I am very interested to see what Dead by Daylight goes with this and takes this angle of the Krasue. I'm so excited, dude. Just, oh my god. Anyway, let's continue. In conclusion, the legend of the Krasue is one of Southeast Asia's most chilling examples of how folklore intertwines with culture, religion, and societal fears. She embodies themes of sin, punishment, and the fragility of human life, while also reflecting gendered anxieties about women's roles and the dangers of childbirth. Though her form, floating head and trailing entrails, remains terrifying, her story has evolved over centuries, shifting from a purely horrific figure into one that also carries tragic and symbolic weight. The Krasue survives today because she represents both the horror of the supernatural and the cultural values of the communities that tell her story. She is a monster that floats not only through the night, but also through the imagination of Southeast Asia, a haunting reminder of how folklore continues to shape collective fears and beliefs. During the long and bloody Vietnam War, the jungles of Vietnam became more than just a battlefield. For many American soldiers, the thick forests, swamps, and misty nights created an environment that felt alive and full of secrets. The war itself was brutal, with hidden traps, sudden ambushes, and an enemy that could vanish into the land. But what made the experience even stranger were the countless stories soldiers told about things they could not explain. Some spoke of ghosts wandering the rice fields at night, said to be the restless spirits of villagers or fallen fighters. Others described invisible presences following them through the jungle, watching but never seen. Strange lights were sometimes reported in the skies, and mysterious sounds filled the darkness when no enemy was around. In such a stressful and terrifying place, fear mixed with imagination, and soon tales of cryptids and paranormal beings spread among troops. These legends, whether born from trauma, superstition, or real unexplained encounters, became part of the war itself, making Vietnam not only a struggle against an enemy army, but also against forces that seemed otherworldly. Hey everybody, I'm Blast. I make videos about video games or urban legends, just whatever really I want to talk about. And today's video is specifically focusing on legends that the American soldiers and Marines and just the troopers told each other while they were serving during the Vietnam War. And the reason why I wanted to make this video was not only is it an interesting setting and I wanted to talk about more urban legends from Vietnam, because I think they're interesting, but also because I have a personal tie to this whole thing, because my grandfather served in the Vietnam War, and he found out what my channel was and started talking to me about it, about ghost stories that he experienced. And he was telling me about how during the Vietnam War, some of the Marines were talking about some kind of invisible force, a ghost or some kind of entity that was in the jungles and would laugh at them. So I thought that was really interesting and creepy, so I decided to look more into it on the internet, and I found a few different stories that I wanted to discuss and share with you guys today. So without further ado, this video specifically is dedicated to my grandpa. And if you're watching this video, Grandpa or anyone else, thank you for clicking on the video. So let's get into it. One of the most popular and chilling stories told about Vietnam involves the American tunnel rats, soldiers that were trained to crawl into the underground tunnel systems built by the Viet Cong. These tunnels were already terrifying, dark, cramped, and filled with booby traps, but one legend tells of an encounter that felt more like a horror movie than a brutal battlefield. According to the tale originally shared on Reddit, 2 tunnel rats moved deeper than usual into a hidden network when they found something strange, a set of stairs leading even further down, carved into the earth as though it were a natural formation. Against their better judgment, they followed the steps and entered a wide chamber lit by flickering candles. There, they claimed to see a group of Vietnamese villagers, or soldiers, kneeling in silence, their eyes fixed on a golden statue. The statue was unlike anything they had ever seen. It was shaped like a woman, but instead of legs, she had long, twisting tentacles curling around the base. The figure seemed almost alive in the candlelight, and the worshippers never moved or spoke, as if entranced. The 2 Americans, overwhelmed with dread, backed away quietly and left the chamber without firing a shot. They later described the event as something far beyond the war, as if they had stumbled onto a forgotten cult, or a being that belonged to another world entirely. Truly Lovecraftian. Another story that spread among soldiers in Vietnam was about strange, invisible beings in the jungle. Troops said these entities would follow them at night, unseen but always felt. Sometimes they would set off tripwires or even trigger claymore mines without being harmed, as if they were mocking the traps meant for the enemy. Men swore they could hear laughter echoing through the trees after a trap was sprung, a sound that didn't match any human voice. It was high, distorted, and carried on the humid air long after the jungle went silent again. Some soldiers thought it was the enemy playing tricks, while others believed it was spirits tied to the land, angry at the presence of outsiders. The most unsettling part was that these presences never showed themselves, leaving soldiers to fight an enemy they couldn't see, one that seemed more supernatural than human. On top of the dangers of combat, American troops also had to deal with eerie sounds in the jungle that blurred the line between real threats and the supernatural. The Viet Cong were masters of psychological warfare, often playing recordings of crying children, wailing women, or ghostly voices through hidden speakers at night to unsettle soldiers. These sounds mixed with the natural noises of the jungle, screeching insects, howling animals, and strange echoes, until many men could no longer tell what was real. Some reported whispers that seemed to come from right behind them, only to turn out and find that there was nothing there. Others heard footsteps in the brush, but no enemy ever appeared. Combined with exhaustion, fear, and isolation, these tactics broke down the minds of many soldiers, leaving them haunted even in silence. For some, it felt like the jungle itself was alive, full of voices meant to drive them mad. In the end, the stories of ghosts, monsters, and strange beings in Vietnam remind us how deeply the war scarred everyone who lived through it. For American soldiers, the jungle became more than just a battlefield. It was a place of shadows, whispers, and fears that often felt supernatural. For the Vietnamese, both soldiers and villagers. The war brought destruction to their homes, their families, and their land, which had its own long history of spirits and legends. Whether the tales of golden statues, invisible entities, and eerie voices were real encounters or born from stress and trauma, they show how war pushes people to their limits, blurring the line between reality and nightmare. These legends have survived because they capture the feeling of facing not only an enemy, but also the unknown. While the stories are chilling, they also remind us to respect the courage and suffering of all who lived and died in that war, on both sides. In their memory, these tales stand as more than just ghost stories. They are echoes of fear, survival, and the heavy price of conflict. War is hell.
It is believed that the indictment is only one of a series to be handed down as a result of a special grand jury investigation. Grave robbing in Texas is this hour's top news story.
When people think about horror movies like Psycho, The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, or The Silence of the Lambs, they may not know that all of them were partly inspired by a real man. Well, maybe just Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Well, whatever the case, his name was Ed Gein, and he lived in Plainsfield, Wisconsin during the early and mid-1900s. Gein was not a typical serial killer, but the crimes he committed shocked the world and left a lasting mark on American culture. His story is both disturbing and sad, showing how a lonely, troubled man could become the center of some of the darkest chapters in true crime history. Hey everybody, my name is Blas, and I like to make videos about things that I like to talk about, which usually ends up being video games, but lately I've been really into urban legends, and like I said before, I wanted to try more true crime stuff, even though a lot of those are like tough to talk about because like 99% of them do not have happy endings, and I just don't want to be depressed all the time. So I'll very rarely talk about them, probably just the big guys, like the one we're talking about today. So that's my little introduction. The reason why we're talking about Ed Gein is because he will be, there's this show on Netflix that I've never seen, but each season is focused on a different serial killer, or serial killers, I should say plural because they're already working on multiple, but the next season coming up will be focused on Ed Gein. And that's sort of a cool thing to, learn about, but also at the same time it's depressing because what that show seems to do is paint the serial killers in a more sympathetic light, making people feel for them. And like I understand that a lot of serial killers are messed up people and they deserve some kind of I don't know, it's okay to pity them, but it's not okay to idolize them. So what we're doing today is I'm going to teach or discuss, I'm not a teacher, so we're going to discuss Ed Gein. I'm just yapping, so let's get into the video. Ed Gein was born on August 27, 1906 in La Crosse, Wisconsin. His childhood was difficult and shaped much of the person he became. His father, George, was an alcoholic who struggled to keep steady work, while his mother, Augusta, was a strict and controlling woman. Augusta, or I guess we're just going to call her that by now, I'll probably be butchering her name, I apologize. Augusta was deeply religious and often told Ed and his brother Henry that the world was full of sin, especially warning them about women. She raised Ed to believe that women, except for herself, were evil and dangerous. Because of Augusta's control, Ed grew up isolated from the outside world. He was shy, socially awkward, and had trouble making friends. Most of the time he spent working on the family farm, doing chores and listening to his mother's harsh lessons about morality. When his father died in 1940 and his brother Henry died under mysterious circumstances in 1944, Ed was left alone with his mother. When Augusta herself died in 1945, Ed lost the only person he was ever truly close to. Her death left him broken, and he lived the rest of his life in deep loneliness. After his mother died, Ed Gein became a recluse. He lived alone in the old farmhouse, which quickly fell into disrepair. He boarded up the rooms his mother had used, leaving them untouched, and instead lived in a small area of the house with no electricity or running water. Neighbors thought of him as odd but mostly harmless. He sometimes did odd jobs around town, and people noticed that he was polite but strange. Behind closed doors, however, Ed Gein's mind was slipping further into darkness. Obsessed with death and unable to cope with his isolation, he began visiting local graveyards at night. He dug up recently buried bodies, especially those of women, and brought parts of them home. At first, he claimed he only wanted to be near his mother again, but soon his actions grew far more disturbing. When police finally entered Ed Gein's quiet farmhouse in 1957, they stepped into a nightmare that seemed pulled from a horror story. The rooms were dark and decayed, and the air was thick with a smell no one could forget. What they found was not just evidence of death, but signs of a man who had spent years turning his home into a place of terror. Bernice Warden, the missing hardware store owner, was discovered in the shed, in a condition that horrified even the toughest of officers. Mary Hogan, a tavern owner who had vanished years earlier, was also tied to the same twisted fate when pieces of her were found among Gein's disturbing creations. Chairs, bowls, and clothing stitched from human remains revealed how far his madness had gone. It was not only the murders that chilled people, but the thought of Gein quietly living among these grim trophies, hiding a nightmare behind the walls of his plain farmhouse. Even more unsettling than the murders was the revelation that Gein had spent years prowling local graveyards under the cover of night. He confessed that when the moon was high and when the town slept, he would dig up freshly buried bodies of women that reminded him of his mother. These stolen remains were carried back to his farmhouse, where he shaped them into grotesque household items and clothing. To the townspeople, the cemeteries had always been a place of quiet rest, but now they realized that Gein had turned them into hunting grounds for his obsessions. Families were left wondering if their loved ones had been taken, and the line between death and safety seemed shattered forever. Ed Gein was arrested and quickly declared mentally unfit for trial. Doctors said he suffered from severe mental illness, including psychosis and an unhealthy attachment to his mother. He spent the rest of his life in mental institutions rather than prison. In 1968, after years of treatment, Gein was finally declared fit to stand trial. He was found guilty of murder, but he was considered insane at the time of his crimes. He remained in psychiatric hospitals until his death on July 26, 1984, at the age of 77. Although Ed Gein was only confirmed to have killed 2 women, the strange and gruesome details of his crimes made him one of the most infamous figures in American history. His story inspired several famous horror movie characters. First is Norman Bates. Norman Bates in Psycho mirrors Gein's unhealthy attachment to his mother and his struggle with identity after her death. Second and most famous connection is Leatherface in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Leatherface reflects the gruesome side of Gein's crimes, especially his masks and furniture made from human skin. And thirdly, Buffalo Bill in The Silence of the Lambs. Buffalo Bill shows the disturbing obsession with turning human bodies into something wearable. These characters became legends of horror, terrifying audiences for decades, but their roots can be traced back to one man whose real-life acts blurred the line between reality and nightmare. Because of this, Gein is sometimes called the grandfather of modern horror. His crimes changed how people thought about small-town America, proving that evil could hide even in the most of ordinary places. It is unfortunate that Ed Gein's grisly crimes are remembered because they overshadow the deeper tragedy of his life and the suffering of his victims. While many people know Gein as the Butcher of Plainfield or as the inspiration for famous horror characters, specifically Leatherface, far fewer remember the real human cost of what he did. Bernice Warden and Mary Hogan were women with families and lives of their own, yet in history their names are often reduced to footnotes beneath Gein's twisted story. At the same time, Gein himself was a deeply disturbed man shaped by abuse, isolation, and mental illness, and his legacy has become one of shock and fascination, instead of reflection on how such pain and neglect can create tragedy. The way popular culture has turned his actions into entertainment, feeding into horror movies and books, makes it easy to forget the real terror that his community felt and the grief his crimes caused. Instead of being remembered as a warning about untreated mental illness and the damage of extreme isolation, Gein is often recalled only for the gruesome details of his crimes. This focus on the gore rather than the lessons behind it turns a tragic chapter in history into a spectacle, leaving behind the humanity of both his victims and the broken man himself. In conclusion, Ed Gein's life and crimes are a dark reminder of how loneliness, mental illness, and obsession can lead to terrifying actions. He was not the most active or prolific killer, but the shocking way he lived and what police found in his home left an unforgettable scar on American culture. His story is both a tragedy and a horror, showing how a man shaped by an abusive upbringing and isolation could become a figure who still haunts true crime and horror stories today. While his actions caused great pain, they also gave rise to cautionary tales and some of the most iconic horror characters of all time. So that was the essay portion. I had a few words to say afterward. So, studying Ed Gein and serial killers as a whole, throughout portions of my life, whether out of morbid curiosity or doing schoolwork or just whatever, if I find myself reading about a serial killer, it's hard to pity them. It's hard to somehow not feel bad for them in a way, because despite how messed up, broken, and demonic that they can be, they're still human. Ed Gein being lonely and being socially awkward is traits that we could all relate to. The difference is that, or the things that we can learn is that we have to purposely push ourselves. It's gonna hurt and it's scary, but you have to push ourselves to talk to other people, to try to be better. Because if you succumb to your own feelings and your own fears, then we might as well just be one step away from demons like Ed Gein. So, it's always good to take care of yourself and know when to push yourself. Because there's too much fear in the world today. And, well, it never hurts to try. The Mothman is one of the most famous urban legends in American folklore, often described as a strange winged creature that looks part human and part moth. People say it has glowing red eyes, large wings, and can fly silently in the night. The legend first started in Point Pleasant, West Virginia in the 1960s, when several townspeople claimed that they saw this mysterious figure near an old military site and around the town. Sightings of this creature caused fear and curiosity, with some believing it was a warning sign of danger. The story grew even bigger after a tragic bridge collapse in 1967, which many people linked to the Mothman. Since then, it has become a lasting mystery that people talk about in books, movies, and even festivals, showing how powerful and spooky urban legends can be. Hey everybody, my name is Blas. I make videos about spooky things or just videos about video games that I like to play, whether it be Dead by Daylight, Fortnite, or Marvel Rivals, which Fortnite and Marvel Rivals I don't really do a lot of videos on, but I'm trying to make more because I play those a lot, so I might as well, make the time I spend on them useful. So anyway, so today we're talking about the Mothman. The Mothman has always been one of my favorite urban legends. Maybe I'll do a top 10 of my favorites if you're interested, or maybe not, I don't know. But, so I've already said before that the Fresno Nightcrawlers are one of my favorite urban legends. Well, another one to add to that list is the Mothman. The Mothman is just, I don't know what about it captivated me. I just always thought it was a creepy legend of this flying creature with red eyes. I mean, what else is there? And to some people, they also think of it as like some kind of omen, a bad omen. So overall, it interests me. So without any further ado, I'm sorry if you heard any background noise in the last clip. It was because a plane was flying overhead. I get a lot of those, so it makes recording it makes it feel like hell. But anyway, let's get to the video. The first widely reported sighting of the Mothman happened on November 15th, 1966 in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. Two young couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Mollett, were driving near an old military TNT plant late at night. There they saw a large dark figure standing on the road. They described it as a tall creature over 6 feet, with huge wings and glowing red eyes. When they drove away in fear, the creature spread its wings and chased their car, flying at incredible speeds. The couple were so frightened that they went straight to the police to report what they had seen. This event marked the beginning of the Mothman legend and sparked a wave of sightings in the area over the next year. And just another thing, another note to add, to keep in the back of your mind is, What made them call it the Mothman? What made them think of moth? If I seen a creature with red eyes, I would think of a demon. I wouldn't think of a moth, you know? Well, anyway, moving on to the next event. Arguably the most tragic event connected to the Mothman legend was the collapse of the Silver Bridge in Point Pleasant, West Virginia. On December 15th, 1967, during rush hour traffic, the bridge suddenly gave way and fell into the Ohio River, killing 46 people. The disaster shocked the community, and many people began to link it to the strange sightings of the Mothman that had been happening in the area the year before. Some believed the creature was a warning of the tragedy, while others thought it might have somehow caused the collapse, somehow. Whether it was a messenger of doom or just an eerie coincidence, the bridge disaster forever tied the Mothman legend to a real and devastating event, making the story even more powerful and mysterious. While the Mothman legend began in West Virginia, the idea of a winged red-eyed creature that appears before tragedy is not unique to American folklore. In some cultures, there are stories of a bird-like or bat-like creatures that are seen as omens of disaster or even death. For example, in parts of Latin America, people speak of La Lechuza, a giant owl-like witch spirit that warns or hunts those who see it. In Europe, there are old legends of the Banshee, not winged, but still a creature that appears before death or misfortune, similar to how Mothman is linked to tragedy. In modern times, people from around the world have even claimed to see Mothman-like creatures near disasters, such as the Chernobyl nuclear accident in Ukraine, or even before 9/11 in New York. Because of this, many cultures now see the Mothman as more than just a local legend. He has become a global symbol of mystery and fear, often thought as a warning sign from beyond. So, doing some more research, the name Mothman was given to the creature shortly after the first sightings in Point Pleasant in 1966. John Neal explains in his book The Mothman Prophecies that at that time, the Batman TV show was very popular, and newspapers were quick to give strange stories catchy names. Since witnesses described a dark, winged figure with glowing eyes, reporters compared it to a giant moth and combined that with the man part from superheroes, for example, like Batman. The name stuck, and soon everyone was calling the creature the Mothman, even though the descriptions don't actually match a moth very well. The nickname was memorable and helped the story spread across the country. Many researchers and skeptics believe that the Mothman may not be a mysterious creature at all, but rather a case of mistaken identity. I believe the same thing. The most common explanation is that people were actually seeing a large bird such as a barred owl, or a sandhill crane, or even a great horned owl. These birds can grow very big, have glowing eyes when light shines on them at night, and can fly quickly and silently, which matches many parts of the Mothman descriptions. Stress, fear, and darkness can also make people misjudge size and shape, turning a simple bird into something that looks much scarier than it really is. Others think it could have been a mix of animals, shadows, and human imagination all feeding into each other, especially after the first reports spread through town. While we may never know for sure, it's very possible that the legend of the Mothman was born from real creatures of nature being seen in the wrong place at the wrong time. The Mothman has become a major figure in pop culture, moving far beyond the small town of Point Pleasant where the legend began. It has inspired books, documentaries, and movies, most famously the Mothman Prophecies film in 2002, which brought the story to a worldwide audience. The creature often appears in TV shows, video games, and comic books, usually as a mysterious monster or a symbol of warning. Point Pleasant itself holds an annual Mothman festival and even has a large statue of the creature, turning the legend into both a tourist attraction and a cultural icon. On the internet, Mothman has also gained a playful side, with memes and jokes portraying it as a misunderstood, even lovable creature. This mix of fear, fascination, and humor shows how strongly the legend has taken hold, proving that urban myths like the Mothman can grow into lasting parts of popular culture. So, to wrap things up, the story of the Mothman shows how a single strange sighting can grow into one of the most famous urban legends in the world. From the chilling reports in Point Pleasant during the 1960s to a tragic Silver Bridge collapse, the creature became linked to mystery, fear, and even tragedy. Over time, the legend spread across cultures and took on new meanings, often being compared to other supernatural omens from around the world. Today, Mothman lives not only as a spooky story, but also as a pop culture icon celebrated in movies, festivals, and internet communities. Whether seen as a monster, a warning, or simply a legend, the Mothman continues to capture people's imaginations, proving that some mysteries never fully go away. The Hatman is a well-known urban legend about a dark shadow figure that many people say they have seen during the night, often when they are half asleep or unable to move. Witnesses usually describe him as a tall, human-shaped shadow, wearing a long coat and a wide-brimmed hat, standing silently in a doorway, next to the bed, or even at the foot of it. He does not speak, but people say his presence feels heavy, cold, and deeply frightening, as if he is watching on purpose. What makes the legend stand out is that people from many different countries who have never talked to each other describe the same shape with the same hat. Some people believe he is a ghost, a demon, or a spirit that feeds on fear, while others think he may be a trick of the brain caused by sleep paralysis or stress. The Hatman has become a lasting figure in modern folklore because so many stories about him sound alike, and because of the way he mixes dreams, fear, and the unknown. Hey everyone, my name is Blast, and I like to talk about scary stuff, heavy music, and video games that I play. I make reviews, concept chapters for Dead by Daylight, which is like the main pool for my channel, and I also write discussion videos about scary things such as true crime, urban legends, and cryptids. Today, we'll be discussing the infamous and creepy figure known as the Hatman. This Hatman is often seen during a state called sleep paralysis. Sleep paralysis is a strange and messed up state that happens when your mind wakes up, but your body is still asleep and can't move. It often happens right as you are falling asleep or right as you are waking up. During sleep, the brain keeps the body still so you don't act out your dreams, but sometimes the brain wakes before the body fully unlocks, sort of, and you become aware while still frozen in place. Many people also feel like something heavy is on their chest, making it hard to breathe or talk. It can last from a few seconds to a couple of minutes, but it feels so much longer. Because the body is stuck and the mind is confused, the brain can create vivid sights and sounds like footsteps, figures in the room, or someone sitting on the bed. These are not real, but they feel real in the moment. Even though sleep paralysis feels terrifying, it is not harmful, and happens to many people at least once in their life, often during times of stress, poor sleep, or irregular sleep schedules. I, for one, am a regular enjoyer of what we call sleep paralysis. I get it every few months, and it's always when I either take a nap during the day or dead in the middle of the night. Sleep paralysis happens when the timing of your brain and body gets out of sync during sleep. Normally when you enter deep sleep, like we talked about before, your brain turns off your muscles so you do not move around while dreaming. When you wake up, that muscle lock is supposed to turn off too. Sleep paralysis occurs when the brain becomes awake before the body has finished switching off that paralysis, so you are conscious but still stuck. This is more likely when your sleep schedule is messy, like mine, such as staying up too late, waking up at different times, or not getting enough sleep. Stress, anxiety, and emotional pressure can also increase the chances because they disrupt the normal sleep cycle. Sleeping on your back is another common factor, which I often do too. Because in that position, breathing can be slightly harder, which may trigger the brain to wake up suddenly while the body remains frozen. People who have conditions like narcolepsy, PTSD, or strong nightmares get it way more often than others, but it can happen to anyone, even healthy people. In short, it is not caused by something supernatural. It is the brain waking up too soon while the body is still in dream mode, but because the mind is alert and terrified, it can create frightening visions that feel real. During sleep paralysis, the brain is awake and still in a dreamlike state, so because of these visions that we see, people often report seeing dark shapes at the edge of the room, figures standing in doorways, or shadows moving toward the bed. Some feel like someone is sitting on their chest, whispering, touching them, or leaning close to their face. Because the body cannot move or speak, the fear makes these images even stronger and more detailed. One of the most commonly reported figures in these experiences is the Hatman, a tall shadow with a long coat and a wide-brimmed hat who watches silently. Many people see him during sleep paralysis and believe he is not just a dream, but a real being visiting them. The fact that so many strangers describe the same kind of shadowy man with a hat is one of the big reasons the Hatman became so well known and frightening in modern folklore. So, I for one have felt presences, however I've never seen the Hatman myself, nor do I want to. The mystery of the Hatman does not have one clear standing point, but it grew from many people sharing similar stories over time. The idea likely began from sleep paralysis experience that happened long before the internet. Because the mind fills in shadows with familiar forms, many imagined a human figure, and the shape of a hat or coat is easy for the brain to draw out of darkness. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, reports of a shadow man wearing a hat began appearing more often on radio shows, paranormal forums, and online message boards, where people discovered that others had seen the same thing. A famous boost came when stories about the Hatman were shared on the radio show Coast to Coast AM, which often talks about ghosts and strange events. From there, the figure spread through books, TV, ghost shows, and social media, turning a personal nightmare into a global legend. Over time, people gave him different meanings: a demon, a spirit, a time traveler, and a warning sign, which helped the legend grow even more. So the Hatman is not traced to a single inventor, but rather to many separate experiences that sounded almost identical, combined and repeated until they formed one shared myth. The Hatman legend has inspired many things in modern culture. Horror writers and filmmakers often use shadowy figures with hats as a slow, silent threat because people already recognize and fear that image. Some short horror films and online creepypastas are directly based on Hatman encounters. Certain episodes of paranormal TV shows like Paranormal Witness and A Haunting feature stories of people seeing the Hatman and treat him as a real entity. In video games and indie horror projects, creators sometimes include a tall shadow with a hat as a nod to the legend. Even characters like the Babadook or the Slender Man with the suit and hat style have been compared to him, showing how the idea of a watching, faceless silhouette is now a standard horror symbol. Online art, podcasts, and TikTok stories also keep the legend alive, with people drawing and retelling their own sightings. Over time, the Hatman moved from being just a private nightmare to a widely recognized figure that continues to shape how fear is shown in modern horror media. Because of this, people have suggested many different ideas for what the Hatman could represent or truly be, and these ideas fall into a few main groups. The first group is like the most believable one. It's a sleep paralysis hallucination. The most scientific view says that the Hatman is not a being at all, but a hallucination created by the brain during sleep paralysis. When someone wakes up frozen and afraid, the brain tries to make sense of the darkness by drawing a human figure out of shadows. The hat and coat shape is simple and recognizable, which is why many people see the same form. The second group, a symbol of fear or trauma. Some psychologists believe he represents a person's inner stress, past trauma, or deep fear. The silent watching figure could be the mind's way of showing responsibility, guilt, or something the person feels watched or judged by in life. In this view, the Hatman is not a spirit, he is the shape your fear chooses. The third group believes he's a paranormal entity. Many people who have seen him believe he is real, a ghost, demon, or negative energy that enters during moments when the mind is weak. Something he feeds off fear or watches humans like an observer. Others see him as a demon attached to sleep or the border between dreams and reality. The fourth group. He's a shadow person or interdimensional being. In paranormal communities, the Hatman is sometimes said to be a type of shadow person, a being made of darkness from another realm or dimension. People who believe this idea think he appears in many lives because he is not tied to one person or place, but simply moves through worlds. Honestly, I think this view is kind of lame, but whatever. And our final, most interesting point of view is that he is a warning figure. Some witnesses report bad luck or death in the family after seeing him, leading to the belief that he is an omen, not causing harm himself, but appearing as a sign that something serious is coming. After going through the different perspectives of what the Hatman could be, he reminded me a lot of the famous slasher Freddy Krueger of the Nightmare on Elm Street movies. Freddy Krueger and the Hatman share a few clear similarities, even though one is a movie character and the other is more of a real-life urban legend. So, both are connected to sleep and appear when people are not fully awake or able to move. They are seen in bedrooms or near beds, and they have their victims in silence before doing anything. Well, Freddy has his victims screaming, but you get the idea. Both also create fear by taking advantage of movement when the person is helpless. In many times in the movies, Freddy has his victims sink into the stairs like in the first movie, or get sucked into their bed. That's also in the first movie. I would keep thinking about the first movie because I love that film specifically. And of course, the Hatman only appears when you are in sleep paralysis. Freddy wears a hat and dark clothing, his dark colored red and green sweater, which makes him look somewhat like the shadowy Hatman shape that many people describe. The biggest similarity is that both figures turn sleep, a safe and private part of life, into something frightening, making people afraid to close their eyes. The Hatman stands out as one of the most unsettling modern legends because he mixes real science with deep fear. Many people around the world describe seeing the same tall, shadowy figure with a hat during sleep paralysis, a moment when the brain wakes up but the body cannot move. Some believe he is just a dream image caused by stress and fear, while others think he is a real spirit or some kind of demon or watcher from another world. Over time, these shared stories helped turn the Hatman from a private nightmare into a well-known figure in pop culture, appearing in art, films, and ghost stories. Whether he is a trick of the mind or a true being, the legend continues to grow because it touches on something humans already fear: being helpless in the dark with something standing over you, silent and staring. Now, I actually don't know when this video is coming out, so anyway, on last week's Thanksgiving Day, I stuffed my face with food and had the usual food coma that everyone seems to fall in, but I ended up staying awake and soldiered through it. I eventually left my family circle and had to take a breather outside in the cool air because the heater and everyone's body heat was kind of getting to me, and I'm sort of a solitary guy, so I wanted to take a break. And after a few moments, I heard creepy music playing, and when I turned around, it's my brother watching some video on TikTok. After a few moments, I recognized the music. It was the main theme for one of my favorite horror movies called Sinister, which was released back in 2012, starring Ethan Hawke. It's really good. If you haven't seen the film, I really do recommend it. It's really good. So the song itself is called Gyroscope by the Boards of Canada. The track is just creepy and evokes a certain feeling of dread inside of me. I immediately thought he was watching something so scary. Then I went to chastise him because I'm the older brother. I gotta look out for him, make sure he's not watching anything too scary. Gotta pace himself with the horror stuff. But anyway, when I looked on what he was watching, I seen a white bird staring at the screen. With the music, it was just something else. The caption called it the fever dream bird. Today, I want to talk more about it and why it's sticking with me. The bird itself is from a 1973 short painting film created by the Romanian painter and director Sabin Balasa. The film plays more like a moving painting rather than a normal story. It uses hand-painted, dreamlike visuals to show a symbolic journey of life and humanity. Instead of dialogue or a clear plot, it presents cosmic and surreal images that feel like a creation myth. A figure brings a child into a harsh world. The child suffers, grows, learns, and slowly shapes nature, fire, tools, and culture, reflecting how humanity rises from nothing and tries to understand its place in the universe. The film blends ideas of birth, struggle, transformation, memory, and in the endless cycle of life with Balassa's glowing cosmic art style, creating a hypnotic mood that suggests humans are small but connected to something much, much bigger. Overall, it's a poetic visual meditation on where we come from, what we experience, and how we search for meaning in a vast and mysterious cosmos. Now, that's fine and dandy, but the bird is so damn creepy. The internet is saying it has something to do with fever dreams, and FYI, I had to look it up to be sure of the definition as well. A fever dream is a messed up dream that you have when you're sick and your body temperature is high. Because your brain isn't working normally during a fever, the dream can feel weird, scary, or unreal, almost like your mind is mixing random thoughts together in a strange way. If normal dreams are like the back rooms, fever dreams are like Silent Hill. Thank God I haven't gotten a fever dream yet, or else I'd be cooked. I have terrible nightmares quite often, so if I were to have a fever dream, I probably wouldn't wake up. The Bible is a book that contains many, many interesting and beautiful concepts. Life, death, love, and forgiveness. There are stories of hardships, giants, higher callings, and it's entirely based on the Savior of mankind. It's kind of an epic story overall, one to be admired and studied. With God so powerful and mysterious, it's a tough concept to grasp. He's bigger in fact. Most times bigger and often terrifying to picture just how this absolute power can or cannot exist depending on your beliefs. Pushing aside my personal beliefs for a moment because I consider myself a Christian, the Bible isn't just a grand epic. Through the eyes of a confused and scared human, it can be viewed as the stuff of nightmares. If we can barely understand and perceive what God even is, then what possibly could that mean for his angels? Let me tell you, there's a reason demons fear angels, a reason why they tell us, be not afraid. I won't blame you if they remind you of something Lovecraftian. Hey everyone, I'm Blast, and I talk about heavy music, scary stuff, and love to yap about the video games that I play. Sometimes I do video game reviews, other times I talk about fever dreams that creep me out. So today we'll be exploring just what the heck is a so-called biblically accurate angel, and its many depictions. Demons are said to be horrifying, both in old paintings and books, and in modern films and video games. In stories, including the Bible, an enemy or obstacle needs a worthy opponent, someone to stand against them, someone to solve or slay the problem. As terrifying as demons can be, angels can be much, much worse. Biblically accurate angels are powerful spiritual beings created by God, and the Bible shows them in many different forms, some appearing like normal men, and others looking nothing like humans at all. Scripture describes certain angels, like the seraphim in Isaiah 6, as having 6 wings and constantly praising God, while cherubim in Ezekiel 1 and 10 have 4 faces, 4 wings, bodies covered in eyes, and move with intense lightning-like speed alongside glowing wheels full of eyes. Revelation also describes living creatures around God's throne, covered in eyes and worshipping without rest. At the same time, some angels, such as those who visited Abraham or Gabriel, appearing to Daniel and Mary, take on a fully human appearance, which is why Hebrews 13:2 warns that people have entertained angels without realizing it. Despite this, their presence is usually terrifying. Daniel collapses, Zechariah trembles, and the shepherds are terrified. So this is why the first thing angels often say is, "Fear not." They are extremely powerful, capable of killing armies, according to 2 Kings 19:35, shutting lions' mouths in Daniel 6:22, rolling away massive stones in Matthew 28:2, and rescuing people from danger like Peter from prison in Acts 12. Their main role is to serve God, delivering messages, protecting his people, fighting spiritual battles, and carrying out judgment such as the destruction of Sodom in Genesis 19, or the plagues in Revelation. Angels also refuse worship, telling humans to worship God alone in Revelations 22, 8 through 9. And the Bible shows that they have ranks like the archangels, along with distinct types like seraphim, cherubim, and messenger angels such as Gabriel. Altogether, the Bible paints angels not as cute or soft figures, but as holy, mighty, awe-inspiring beings who perfectly carry out God's will. Creeping Death, the Angel of Death, most commonly referred to as the Destroyer. This one I like to call God's last resort. When his hand is forced, he sends the Destroyer to deal with it. Exodus 12:23, the Lord will pass over the door, and will not suffer the Destroyer to come in onto your houses to smite you. The Bible portrays the Destroyer as an angelic agent of God's judgment, appearing in several passages as one who carries out deadly consequences when God commands it. In Exodus 12:23, he is the being God does not allow to enter the houses marked with lamb's blood during the Passover, showing that he brings the death of the firstborn, but only under God's control. This role is echoed in 2 Samuel 24:15-16, where an angel stretches out his hand to destroy Jerusalem during a plague until God tells him it is enough, revealing that the destroying angel executes judgment but does not act on his own whim. Psalms 78:49 reinforces this by saying God sent a band of destroying angels during the plagues, suggesting that destroying angels are a recognized category in Scripture. The New Testament acknowledges him as well. In 1 Corinthians 10:10, it warns that some Israelites were destroyed by the Destroyer, again showing him as a known agent of divine punishment. Revelation later presents a destructive figure named Abaddon, or Apollyon, the Destroyer, who rules over abyssal forces during end times judgment according to Revelations 9:11, expanding the idea of destroyer beings under God's final purposes. Throughout Scripture, the Destroyer is not Satan, nor a rogue force, but a terrifying servant who carries out God's justice in moments of extreme sin or rebellion. Altogether, the Bible shows the Destroyer as a powerful, fearsome angel, or group of angels who bring plagues, death, and destruction when God commands, and who stop immediately when God says so, demonstrating that even the most frightening divine judgments are completely under God's authority. God's right hand. The figure I'm interested in the most, besides God, is the archangel known as Saint Michael, the future slayer of Satan. The archangel Michael is portrayed in the Bible as a powerful but humble warrior angel who holds a unique place in God's heavenly order. He is the only angel specifically called an archangel in Scripture, according to Jude 1:9, where he confronts Satan over the body of Moses. He refuses to speak arrogantly and instead says, "The Lord rebuke thee," showing both authority and submission to God. In the book of Daniel, he appears as a chief prince and the special protector of Israel, helping another angel fight spiritual opposition, Daniel 10:13, being described as your prince in Daniel 10:21, and arising in the end times to defend God's people during a time of unparalleled trouble in Daniel 12:1. Michael is also a commander of angels, leading heavenly forces in a cosmic battle where he and his angels fight against the dragon, Satan, and cast him out of heaven, according to Revelations 12:7-9. His voice is associated with the return of Christ, as believers will hear the voice of the archangel when the Lord descends from heaven in 1 Thessalonians 4:16, suggesting that Michael has a role in announcing or accompanying that event. Altogether, the Bible shows Michael as a mighty spiritual warrior and leader who defends God's people, battles Satan himself, commands angelic armies, and plays a key part in the end-time events, yet always acts under God's authority and never seeks worship or power beyond what God gives him. When you think of angels, what do you imagine? Cherub? Emily from Hazbin Hotel? Castiel from Supernatural? Well, in truth, those depictions have minor elements inspired by what they're supposed to be. Despite their terrifying, maddening appearances in the Bible, they can be quite kind and gentle, such is the case in the book of Judges 6:12-16. In this story, a man named Gideon is chosen by God to save Israel from the I'm pretty sure it's pronounced the Midnights. Midnights. I have trouble pronouncing some of these words. Gideon is doubtful and rather unsure of his ability and presence, as we often are when we're faced with a rough obstacle. An angel then appears to him and delivers a message from God to reassure him and give him strength. Or even in Luke 2:10, where an angel appears and says to the shepherds, "Fear not, for behold, I bring you good tidings of great joy, which shall be to all people." Castiel in Supernatural is seen to help Sam and Dean on their missions, and even grows to love them and sees them as his family. Emily from Has Been Hotel is a sweetheart that still believes there's redemption and good in sinners. And Cherubim, as goofy and cartoony as they look in artwork and cartoons or whatever, they still represent purity and hope. In the Bible, angels are shown to be powerful, holy, and sometimes frightening beings who serve God with perfect loyalty, whether it's Michael leading armies, the destroyer carrying out judgment, or messengers like Gabriel bringing hope and guidance. They can appear in many forms, some looking human, others covered in wings, eyes, or shining with glory, but no matter how strange or overwhelming they seem, they always act with purpose and obedience. We talked about how Michael is a warrior and protector, how the destroyer brings God's justice, and how biblical angels are far different from the soft, harmless versions people imagine today. Over time, fiction and art have taken these ideas and reshaped them into characters like Castiel from Supernatural, who is loyal and serious, but made more human for storytelling. Cherubim in modern art are usually shown as cute baby angels with tiny wings, and you probably get the idea. Even though biblical cherubim are powerful, complex beings and nothing like children, these fictional versions help people connect with the idea of angels, but the Bible shows them as something far greater, beautifully terrifying, yet deeply kind, protective, and holy creatures who reflect God's glory in beautiful ways that are both awe-inspiring and comforting. So anyway, that was my explanation of the biblically accurate angels, the few different ones that appear, and the two big ones, such as the Destroyer and Michael, who may or may not be the same person. So let me know what you think. What's your favorite type of angel? What's your favorite angel in fiction, whether it be from Supernatural, Has Been Hotel, anything. I love angels. I love the idea of angels. Angels and demons are like my favorite concept. Even outside of like being a believer, I just love the concept of angels and demons. Like, even though Diablo, it kind of makes me angry sometimes, I do like the world building in that, how it's sort of like Dungeons and Dragons, but instead of it being all this cosmic stuff and like, you know, normal D&D stuff, it's with angels and demons. It's just it's so cool. Holy and hell, I like that vibe for some reason. But anyway, besides that, I love angels. Angels are such interesting creatures to me. One of my favorite concepts out there. And Archangel Michael is important to me because I even have, even though it's not really a Christian thing to do, I have statues of Michael around my room. Specifically one big one that my grandparents got me. I just respect him as a figure. I do not worship him, but I respect him as a figure because I sort of think of him as like this big brother to the other angels. He's God's right hand, you know, he's there for his father. And I want to be the same thing. I want to be there to protect my brothers. I want to be there to help out my mom, you know. It's just, I don't know. That's just my personal take on the Archangel Michael and why I love angels. I just think they're so cool. And putting aside my thoughts as a believer, angels are crazy. They look terrifying, but yet they're always kind. Even in Doom Eternal and Doom the Dark Ages, even if the angels are the bad guys, the Makers they're called. Oh, got my voice cracked. They're called the Makers. They're still seen as kind of like gentle beings, even if they betray the Slayer in the game. So I like that. Even when they're evil, they're still somewhat like they play the nice part. There's a certain feeling that the cold can invoke, especially when at night. You feel alone, like there's no one around, even if you're walking next to a busy street. There's a freedom, but also a fear that comes along with it. During the cold nights, anything could happen. Now, imagine there's no busy street. You're alone in warm clothes. Your face and your fingers are freezing. You're on a camping trip with friends or maybe family during the winter. You decide to do a little exploring and then you see it. It's a white shape. It chills you to your bones. It's a polar bear, already a terrifying sight to see. But what is it doing here in the woods? And why does something about it look so off? Hey everybody, my name is Blast, and today I'll be analyzing the greatly requested 2026 polar bear meme. The polar bear 2026 meme began with the video posted in March 2023 by a Russian user on TikTok. That user shared a strange image and captioned it as a meme from 2026, suggesting it came from the future. Over time, the clip spread across TikTok as other users kept reposting it, and by September 2023 it had started gaining real traction, reaching wide audiences in Russia first, and then internationally when English-speaking users started sharing it too. Because the image looked uncanny and kind of odd, people began treating it like a modern urban legend, or a creepypasta, and artists and meme makers created fan art and remixes inspired by it. From there, the meme became part of a larger trend online where users share future memes, images or ideas presented as if they came from a future date to give them a mysterious or eerie appeal. In short, Polar Bear 2026 started as a single cryptic post on TikTok, then spread quickly through reposts, adaptation, and fan-made content, turning into a widely recognized meme a few months later. I think I may have seen this meme when it was popular, but my brain seems to have buried it apparently. I only remembered its existence when somebody mentioned it in the comments of last week's video, the Fever Dreambird video, which, thanks by the way for reminding me. The Polar Bear 2026 meme shows a dark, nighttime scene with a polar bear standing in the snow in a way that looks strange and unnatural. The bear appears to be holding itself up mostly by its front legs, giving its body an odd, distorted posture that doesn't look like how a real bear stands. It almost reminds me of a guy in a suit. The image itself is grainy and eerie, almost like something captured by accident, which makes the bear look warped or mutated instead of normal. It is usually presented as if it comes from the future, which adds an unsettling and mysterious tone to the picture. The overall effect is a creepy, uncanny image that feels like it belongs in a dream or a nightmare. When people first saw the Polar Bear 2026 image, they reacted with a mix of confusion, fear, and curiosity, and many came up with their own theories about what it meant. Some thought the strange, distorted bear was a warning about the future, symbolizing things like an environmental collapse or the effects of pollution. Others believed the image was created by AI because its body looked unnatural, while some treated it like a creepypasta, meant to feel mysterious and unsettling. A few people even suggested wild ideas such as the bear being mutated after some kind of disaster, or the photo being sent from the future. Because the picture felt eerie and dreamlike, artists began making fan art based on it, drawing the bear in a darker or more surreal styles, sometimes making it look mutated, or using it to represent a ruined future world. These drawings appeared on sites like DeviantArt and quickly became part of the meme's identity. As the image continued to spread online, especially through TikTok and YouTube edits with creepy music, it grew into a small online legend, a weird, unsettling picture that inspired theories, stories, and all kinds of creative interpretations. My take on this mysterious picture is separated into two ideas. The first being that the picture is AI generated and that it was meant to be some kind of new creepypasta. My other take is that the Polar Bear 2026 meme in a way is actually from the future and represents how nature's strongest predators are being forced to evolve in order to survive humanity's growing damage to the environment. In this idea, animals, like polar bears, are changing in strange and unnatural ways because Their homes are melting, shrinking, or becoming too dangerous, pushing them to adapt faster than ever before and moving inland to other places. The bear's odd, almost human-like posture in the meme is seen as a sign that predators are becoming more intelligent, more flexible, and more capable of moving like humans to compete for survival. Some even compare this evolution to skinwalkers, creatures in folklore that shift their shape to hunt or hide, suggesting that these animals are beginning to borrow human traits in order to stay alive in a world dominated by people. In my theory, the unsettling look of the 2026 bear isn't just creepy for no reason. It's a warning that nature is changing in ways we might not understand, and the line between human and animal may one day blur as the wild adapts to the destruction that we've caused. When I was a kid, I used to watch a bunch of things with my mom, whether it be Family Guy or Law & Order Special Victims Unit, which honestly I shouldn't have been watching. Everything we watched stuck with me for better and sometimes for worse. One of these shows was an old series called Lost Tapes that would often show on the Animal Planet channel, usually late at night. I absolutely adored Lost Tapes. It ignited my love and passion for urban legends and cryptids. Each episode was a dramatization of a story or an entire fictional story that captured the fear accurately enough to stick with the kids that watched the show. There, I learned about so many cryptids, Mongolian death worms, the monster of Monterey Bay, and my first time hearing about the infamous Wendigo. The Wendigo episode scared the heck out of 9-year-old me so bad that nothing ever really scared me like that again, well, at least in fiction and TVs and in movies. So, going off of memory, the episode followed a group of young people trying to make a documentary, I think. Anyway, they get picked off rather quickly and some park rangers or something show up and they find a girl that survived. Turns out one of her male friends became a Wendigo himself. The howl that the Wendigo makes absolutely terrified me, and its appearance with the deer skull and antlers have been seared into my brain ever since. Hey everybody, my name is Blas, and I like to talk about scary stuff, heavy music, and video games that I play. And today we'll be talking about the legendary and infamous Wendigo. The Wendigo comes from the traditional stories of several Native American tribes from the Great Lakes and northern forest regions of North America, especially the Algonquian-speaking peoples such as the Ojibwe, the Cree, and the Algonquian. These tribes lived in harsh environments with long, freezing winters, where food could be scarce. So many of their stories were meant to teach important lessons about survival, respect, and self-control. The Wendigo was used as a warning about what happens when a person gives in to greed, hunger, or selfishness, especially during desperate times. In many versions of the story, a Wendigo was once a human who became lost in winter or turned to cannibalism to survive, and by doing so they lost their humanity and transformed into a monster. Over time, the Wendigo became a symbol of extreme hunger that can never be satisfied, always wanting more no matter how much it consumes. The name Wendigo comes from Algonquian languages, but it has many spellings including Wendigo, Windigo, and Witico, depending on the tribe and the way the word was recorded by outsiders. Of course, I could be saying these names wrong, and I want to treat this subject with respect because I'm interested in the Wendigo, but I also want to be respectful to the tribes because they believe that this spirit is a true and real evil. So, like I said, I want to be as respectful as possible, so I apologize if I'm mispronouncing some of these names. While translations vary, the name is often linked to ideas like evil spirit that eats humans, or the spirit of the cold north. The word itself reflects the fear of winter, starvation, and isolation, which were very real dangers for the people who first told these stories. The famous deer skull and antler version of the Wendigo does not come from the original Native American stories, but from a much later European and modern horror interpretation. This image began forming in the late 19th and 20th centuries when European writers, artists, and filmmakers learned about the Wendigo through translated books and secondhand retellings. Because many of these creators were unfamiliar with the cultural meaning behind the legend, they reshaped it using symbols that already felt frightening or familiar to European audiences. Just like when Japan makes a ghost story like The Ring, or they use Sadako or something like that, and then in America they try to translate it into our kind of horror by focusing more on body horror instead of ghostly paranormal horror. They translate it to their version of what they think is scary. In European folklore, antlers, skulls, and horned creatures were often linked to the wild, the devil, or dark forest spirits, so artists began mixing those ideas with the Wendigo. Over time, the monster was shown as tall, skeletal, and animal-like, with a deer skull for a face, and large antlers to make it look more inhuman and intimidating, almost like our modern interpretation of a demon. This version fits well with horror themes of cursed forests, hunting imagery, and the fear of nature turning against humans. Movies, video games, and modern illustrations spread this look even further, until many people began to think it was the true Wendigo. In reality, this antlered form is a modern invention shaped by European horror styles, not the original legend, but it became popular because it visually represents hunger, death, and the loss of humanity in a way that is easy to recognize and very, very unsettling to look at. In the original Native American stories, the Wendigo was usually described very differently from the antlered monster seen in modern horror. Among the Algonquin-speaking tribes, the Wendigo was often said to look thin, tall, and painfully skinny, with its bones showing through its skin as if it were starving. Its skin was sometimes described as pale, gray, or sometimes bluish, like a body frozen by extreme cold, reflecting the harsh northern winters where the legend was born. This blue-tinged look symbolized death, frost, and a lack of warmth or life, not something animal-like, like our European depiction. The Wendigo still looked mostly human, which made it even more frightening, because it showed what a person could become if they gave in to greed, hunger, or cannibalism. Its lips might be torn or missing, its eyes sunken, and its body stretched thin, as if it could never eat enough to survive. This version of the Wendigo was not meant to be flashy or dramatic, but disturbing in a quiet way, a realistic way, because it reminded people that the monster was once human. In these stories, the Wendigo served as a moral warning, teaching the importance of sharing, community, and respect during times of hardship. The skinny, frozen appearance reflected both the deadly cold of winter and the spiritual emptiness caused by selfishness, making the Wendigo a symbol of hunger that destroys both the body and the soul. In Native American culture, the Wendigo is deeply feared, not just as a monster, but as a dangerous idea. And because of this fear, many people avoid saying its name out loud, such like a cognito hazard almost. The Wendigo represents extreme hunger, greed, and the loss of humanity, and speaking its name was believed to draw its attention or give it power in some way. Some tribes used other words or spoke about it carefully, especially during winter, when food was scarce and survival was the hardest. The fear was not only about the creature itself, but about what it symbolized, a warning of what could happen if someone turned on their community or gave in to their desperation. Stories of the Wendigo were told quietly and seriously, not for entertainment, but to teach respect, sharing, and self-control. Because of this, the Wendigo is still treated with caution today, and many native people prefer that it not be joked about or casually used, since it carries spiritual weight and represents a real cultural fear tied to survival, history, and loss. The Wendigo has since become very popular in modern pop culture because its story fits well with themes of fear, survival, and losing humanity. Plus, the image, at least the European version, is very popular. One of the most well-known modern appearances is in the video game Until Dawn, where the Wendigo is shown as a tall, thin, pale creature that hunts people in the snowy mountains. That version closely matches the original Native American description, focusing on starvation, cold, and former humans turned into monsters, and it introduced many people to the legend for the first time. The Wendigo has also appeared in movies, TV shows, books, and games like Supernatural, Hannibal, and Antlers, each adapting the creature in different ways, sometimes mixing the original lore with the antlered European-style design. On the internet, the Wendigo became part of meme culture, where people often exaggerate its traits for humor, or just make memes simping for the creature. At the same time, creepy images, videos, and short horror stories online helped keep the darker version of the legend alive, especially on platforms like TikTok and Reddit. Because the Wendigo represents hunger, greed, isolation, and the fear of turning into something monstrous, it continues to be reused and reshaped, making it one of the most recognizable folklore creatures in both serious horror and internet culture. The Wendigo will forever remain one of the most powerful and unsettling figures in folklore because it is more than just a monster. It is a warning rooted in real human fear and survival. Originating from Native American traditions, the Wendigo was used to teach lessons about sharing, self-control, and the danger of greed, especially during brutal winters when starvation was a real threat. Its original appearance, thin, frozen, and still human-like, made it terrifying because it showed what a person could become if they lost their humanity. Over time, as the legend spread into European and modern culture, the Wendigo's image changed, gaining antlers and animal features that fit Western horror styles, even though these were not part of the original stories. Despite these changes, the fear surrounding the Wendigo remains strong, with many native people treating it seriously and avoiding saying its name out of respect. Whether seen through traditional teachings or modern pop culture, the Wendigo continues to represent the danger of unchecked hunger, isolation, and greed, reminding people that the greatest monsters often begin as human. And that was my piece on the Wendigo. I love both versions and respect both versions. The European, more pop culture-y type Wendigo with the antlers and the deer skull, because that's what scared me, that's what scarred me as a kid. But I also deeply respect the Native American version as well, because that one is more realistic and in a way scarier, because that one's way more believable than some creature with antlers. So anyway, if you liked the video, make sure to leave a like, comment what you think about the Wendigo down in the description, and which version you prefer. Just let me know your thoughts, let me hear them. And subscribe if you want to see more. I'm thankful for every subscriber, and I'm thankful that we reached 2,000 subs. I want to see how far we can get and how far we can go. The next goal is, I hate to be kind of confident here, but the next goal is 5,000 subs. I don't know what I'll do for that one, but I'm very excited, and I'm glad that the channel is picking up traction with a lot of viewers, and I want to do my best to make you guys stay. I'm sorry for the lack of uploads, for basically not uploading this entire last week, because I kind of fell out of it. I fall into these spaces of I just don't feel like doing anything, where I don't do good mentally. So I have to take breaks like that, because I'm doing other stuff outside of making YouTube videos, and plus I also get busy, so whatever. I'm gonna try my best to keep uploading weekly, especially now that I want to take this YouTube thing super seriously. And I'll see you guys in the next one. Stay safe, and I don't know if I'll upload the rest of this month, maybe one other video, but if I don't, happy holidays and Merry Christmas, guys. See you later.